Hi, and welcome to season 6 of Outstanding Women Leaders Witty and Wise Conversations, first episode of the new season. I'm your host, Katie L. Eads, founder and chief owl at Outstanding Women Leaders, professional coaching and podcast, an organization dedicated to empowering women in leadership, relationships, and life. Owl is on a mission to host 100 million witty and wise conversations that inspire you, disrupt the way leaders think, and stir your soul into aligned action. That inspiration begins with a set of rules. Nobody gets to be wrong. Nobody gets to be right. Everybody gets to be vulnerable. And my favorite rule, everything is included. We do not edit here. This conversation is exactly what it needs to be in this moment in time. We asked our guests to join us via video to create authentic connection. Eyes are the window to the soul. You will be seen here. You will be heard. There is space for you. When this conversation comes to a close, I will ask our guests 3 questions. If you've tuned in before, you know what they are. If you haven't, you don't want to miss them. But enough about me. Today, I'm excited to welcome Outstanding Women Leader Deahna Joi, founder of Deahna Joi LLC and Budgets by Joy, where finances meet joy, healing, and purpose. Deahna is a holistic financial wellness strategist, seasoned accountant, grant writer, author, and a 12-year yogi who brings heart and healing to every budget. With 17 years in accounting and a grant writing journey that began with scholarship applications in high school, she's helped individuals and organizations unlock funding, rewrite money stories, and build financial legacies. As the founder of Deahna Joi LLC and the joyful and educational brand Budgets by Joy, her mission is deeply personal. Her parents gave her the middle name Joy, and she's made it her purpose to bring that same joy into finances. As former Girl Scout leader and AAU girls basketball coach, seeing majority girls continue to college, she inspires to help in the best way she knew how. Through soulful money guidance, she merges numbers and mindfulness to help people feel empowered, not overwhelmed. A third-generation entrepreneur and proud auntie, Deahna Joi builds out financial literacy programs for nonprofits and communities, integrating trauma-informed education, operational clarity, and mindset shifts that heal financial trauma and restore confidence. Whether in workshops, speaking, project budget, curriculum development, or one-on-one coaching, she leads with compassion and clarity, which she calls mindful money moments. Her work helps others take stable steps towards sustainable wealth, generational change, and a deeper sense of peace. She believes your finances shouldn't just be a part of everyday life, it should be a part of everyday conversation. Welcome. So excited to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. Honestly, I feel like when I hear bio being spoken, I'm like, oh, she really does some money. Thanks. I love that.
Yes, in true manifesting generator form, you've done a lot. And what we didn't talk about in that bio that people are really interested in hearing is you started out in corporate.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, I always say it was easy for me to leave because I made no money as a teacher and I made no money in nonprofit. Corporate has real money. So take us back a little bit to the beginning of how you get into corporate and how you decide to say, peace out, I'm going to build my own brand and business.
Yeah. So I will say being the third generation entrepreneur, it was always in me. But I also had parents who said I gotta go to college and make sure that the 4 years was worth it at the end of the day. And so that's why I went down the accounting route because I knew that was a necessity at any job. That was something that I noticed early on that was missing in the entrepreneurial world, that the education, that why not take that on? But I underestimated what accounting and corporate was, I would say. My personality is definitely made for the behind the scenes, but it was a little too behind the scenes. Let's put it that way. Um, I enjoyed doing everything, but also at the same time, I did too many things. I started out right out of college going on Music Row. So I worked in the music industry, loved it, absolutely felt I was in my purpose when I was there. But I had some rookie moments as a corporate girly who also does not like to be on time. I had to learn the hard way. Um, so that was one of many jobs I would say, but I went into construction from there. Construction was very, I feel like it was exactly how it was meant to be. There's POs, there's in and out the door. It was supposed to be zero at the end of the day. That's part of accounting I liked. And the construction side was pretty much my brain didn't have to go full throttle. So I enjoyed it a little bit more. But that was not the end of my career when it comes to accounting because we've done everything. Um, I even interned when I was in college. So that was what I kind of gave me the stepping stone to go into the corporate and feel comfortable at first. But it also led me into thinking I could have a exit route too because I interned first. So I feel like it wasn't the best mentality going into corporate because I felt like I was here for just a short time, not a long time.
Mm,
I was not chasing a pension person, never was. I went in to learn a new skill, to polish the skills I have, not necessarily to go in and spearhead everything for the next 10 years. That's never been when I saw corporate, that generic interview question, where do you see yourself in like 5 years? I will not lie to you. I do not see myself here. I see myself taking the skills here and moving on. And that's exactly what I did all throughout my corporate experience, I would say. I did it because I had to. I did it at first. That was my mentality, probably, which ruined it in a sense. But
mhm,
also, it gave me the mentality that I could get out and it wasn't going to be forever in this very much rat race.
mm,
Because I was in corporate as a Black woman, it was also another piece of the puzzle that I felt like I had to jump over a whole much more hurdles than I had to, simply just by being heard in a room. So I would easily give great examples and great things and advice we should do, changes, but because it was me who was saying it, it wasn't implemented. So it was sometimes a hard pill to swallow in a sense because I realized early on in my 20s that I had to be bigger, louder, and a little bit more bold just to get my voice heard. And that's not necessarily me. If I had to be big and bold, I wasn't going to be under somebody's title to do that.
mm,
I was a bookkeeper, accounts payable, accounts receivable. So I saw all the money flow. And that's the part where I feel like because I saw the money flow, I also knew when people weren't doing the right things. And so that was, like I said, my voice wasn't always heard. So it was one of those things that I felt like I needed to leave because it wasn't the best place for me.
mm. I love how you entered corporate, and for Gen Zs, like, this is something I really enjoy about them is that they know that they're not going there to die, or as you said, like, get your pension, which I don't even think those exist very many places anymore, and, but you approached corporate like an entrepreneur mindset, right? I call that an
Mhm.
intrapreneur, and to me, that
Mm,
is the biggest difference in mindset that people really need to have is it's okay if you want to exit when you're 50 or 60, but you need to know what you're getting in there. And
yeah.
you need to know what you're doing there and what experience that you want. And I'm curious for you, like what experience did you know you needed to have?
Mm. I think it was, and I'm still learning, because business, you can go to school for business and still not get everything. And that was one thing for accounting. I felt like I learned the book way of doing things, not necessarily the best way of doing things. And
Mm,
so me going into corporate was very much getting rid of what I knew and taking on the actual experience of it all. And I think that's the part where it's easy to say I interned here, but I didn't do anything necessarily. But I interned and made a change. So like even when I was at in healthcare, HCA, I interned there a couple of years while I was in Nashville. And I loved it just because it was an open environment. They listened, they understood that an intern can have value. And so I enjoyed that experience in corporate, which led me to think that that was everywhere. And that
mm,
was one thing that I was like, oh, I probably should have got the job at ACA because that was their mentality. I thought I could just jump leap and it be everywhere. But I also had a not necessarily a warped experience because of entrepreneurship in my family, but I always said I was going to retire at 45. That was not happening in corporate. Um,
It's
when I
not,
said that out
right? Like
loud,
you get handcuffed where it's like, well, I make too much money to leave.
mhm,
But I don't really make enough money to retire or live outside of just that little pension thing they dangle over your
yeah,
head, 401k. Yeah.
yeah, and it's also because my mom retired when she had me, so I got to see the mom stay at home who literally had no anchor in a sense. You got to do whatever she wanted to do. So starting 7 different businesses since I've been born was like, oh, just effortless because she wanted to. So that was also like, oh, I could do the same thing.
Ooh, I imagine that's a very different experience to have a mom in the home that is a brilliant businesswoman in addition to being a brilliant mom.
Yeah, I definitely called her a superwoman. Probably every letter, or I know we used to have like different assignments saying like, who's your role model? She was truly that. Growing up, I never saw her like drop anything because everything was like working on every plate. The spinning plates. She definitely had that mastered. But yeah, I definitely say that it made me a perfectionist just as much because I think I could do the same.
Yeah. And when you describe, being a Black woman in corporate, for me, being a woman in the room with a bunch of men, I got lucky
Mhm.
my first time too. They all cared what I had to say. Like at 23, people cared what I had to say. But then
I
when I
love
was
that.
36 and had a ton of business acumen, the people in the room weren't necessarily listening. And for women that are particularly Black women that are in corporate right now, what advice do you have for them on how to maximize that experience, how to not get angry in the process? Which is I was very frustrated. I was a frustrated generator
Mhm.
when I was there.
Which is absolutely understood. I would say just corporate mindset to have is have an identity outside of your job.
Mm,
Knowing that your job is just a title when you are clocked in. I felt like that was the best part was clocking out because I knew I was about to go do this and that or have a great time. And it wasn't something I was ever taking business home with me. Even though I was at home job before it became an at home experience. I did this back in 2018. So I would say also knowing that your end goal, if it's at that job, get there quicker. Like it does not have to take the 12 years and a typical route of getting there. Find a quicker route. There can be a quicker route. I think that's the other part where we hop on that race and expect it to kind of work itself out in the long run, but it may never, and that may be the reason to leave that job.
yeah, I always say you need a push and a pull for entrepreneurship. If you're not getting
Mhm.
pushed out, sometimes it's easy to stay. The money's good and it's consistent and there's certainty.
Oh yeah,
Um,
even in
yeah.
accounting, I feel like I got comfortable. I took on roommates because it was going to be cheaper here and there, but I ended up helping my roommates out because I had the extra funds. And so those are things that if I could go back to my 20s, I would tell myself to do something different. But I definitely had more lucrative funds in my 20s than most of my colleagues did.
Hmm. So then how do you go from, okay, I'm ready to take the leap? Do you leap into money? Do you save up money? Like, what was your accounting strategy to be successful in business?
Yes, I saved. With the roommate option, I felt like that was the best time for me to take that leap. At the time, I was splitting, I think it was 14 or 1500 3 ways. So I had
Oh,
two
God,
roommates.
you're rich.
So, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I would love to go back to that opportunity. If I could do it right. I paid off all my credit card debt in that time frame, all the things. It was a good time, I would say. But I definitely saved. I got debt free before I even made that jump. Because credit card debt was like my biggest cloud over me in a sense for me not wanting to jump. I cleared that debt first. And then I took that leap knowing I had 6 months of savings under my belt as well.
Mm. Yeah, I always say when you're looking at it is you need to figure out how expensive you are to live. And credit card payments are an expense to live, right? If you can cut down those expenses, you can
Mhm.
throw that money at other places that matter to you. And as a manifesting generator, you like to have your hand in 7 things. What was the first thing that you said, this is what I'm going to sell? Or like, how did you even figure out what was going to be the thing that would be profitable for you?
Great question. I didn't. So the first thing was gifts of joy, which I was personalized gift shopping. I love shopping. This is before Instacart, all the things, because
Mm.
people don't like shopping. There's people who do. And so I would go get, somebody would say like a wedding present. Well, send me their registry. I could literally create a whole gift box personalized for that person. And so that was like my first little side hustle right out the gate. I did a lot of baby showers, a lot of gifts there. But when it came to the real moneymaker, it was listening to what everybody was already asking me. And that was creating budgets. I was already doing budgets, like check-ins with friends and keeping them accountable. And I also took the leap of creating social media budgets by Joy at the same time. So that was like the 2018, I was getting ready. 2019, I took the leap. Had no idea what was around the corner for COVID, but hello. It was an awakening experience, to say the least. 2019, I was working probably 2 different jobs, but they only expected me to come in 2 days a week. So it was also a thing where I loved working with smaller businesses because they didn't expect me to show up, just to show up. And that's when I really niched down to who I help out with today, which is the small businesses and nonprofits, because I realized they were the ones asking the questions to me. They wanted to know the answers. They didn't see a Black woman giving advice. They saw somebody with knowledge giving advice. And that was the best part.
Mm. Yeah, and we had talked earlier about like helping people think outside their tax bracket, and you being passionate about helping like nonprofits and those underserved communities. Talk a little bit about that, because I think that's so important.
Yeah, I started out working with foster care. So I had did that for, it was a temporary contract job. I came in for their accounts receivable for their accounting person was on maternity leave. And so I came in truly for a short period of time, but I noticed in that time frame, little things that could be changed. Just their usual meetings was very generic. There wasn't feel like those moments of that could have been an email. What outcome do we get from this meeting was very much what I initiated when I was there. And so that kind of spearheaded how I even structure and go in about strategy now, for nonprofits especially. But it was just also seeing that they were giving out of date aspects to budgeting. So they were partnered with the bank, but the bank was more focused on the longevity of that person. So like loans and other things, housing, but they weren't working with them where they were today. So like 18-year-old who just got into the world, like they weren't educating them enough. And so that's where my budgets began, all the things. And so that's what kind of got me into the nonprofit world of it all, because I saw that they were getting resources, but not necessarily using the resources they had at the best capacity.
Yeah, I think you touched on something really important, which is you don't go get financial advice from the people that make money from your finances.
Yes.
I have a friend that said, my financial advisor says I shouldn't take out any more money. I'm like, yeah, ask them how that impacts their commission. And then you'll understand why they advised you that. And that is something that happens so much for nonprofits and entrepreneurs. I think you kind of really touched on this, is that nobody really understands finances from this like higher holistic level. They're looking at it from that book level. The book level only ever made bookkeepers money. Like, right? The banks are the same way. And I see a bit of the banks as almost predatory in the sense of, ooh, these low income communities, they don't traditionally have banks. Let's get their kids in. And that for them feels like thinking outside their tax bracket, because they're the first person in their family that got a bank account. But that is probably not the best route to go. There's a lot of poor white folks that got bank accounts too. And so I'm curious, like, how do you help people approach, even like you do the yoga, how do you help them approach from a physical level and also from a mental level of, actually, we don't just go to these institutions that the other people go to. Like, there's actually a better way to look at finances beyond the traditional way.
Yeah, I think that's the best part of what I do, is making people think outside their normal, and creating a solution with them at the same time. So a lot of times the unknown is where people get scared, or they are intimidated by the unknown aspect of it all, and just creating a what if plan. Sometimes I will, if somebody has never even seen the number be as big as it could be, I'll create them a whole like futuristic budget so they can see like, okay, we can pay off all our bills, we can do all these things and save at the same time. So I start off with truly just a vision of what if. What if we get the job that we want to land? What if we get to the point where we have all the sponsors that we want for this? Now we can execute it. What's next, truly? I think that's the part where we can get $10,000 tomorrow and then not know what to do with it to get us out of the rut that we were in. Like you said before, just knowing that number of what your daily life expenses are is one of those things I feel like we overlook, which is such a simple thing. Because if we knew what our expenses were, like 1,200 normal, and if our income is at least 3,000, why are we still in the red every month? There's certain things that like I will bring back to the basics of, okay, this is happening. I heard what you said, but it's really based off of like that one line item of food or the kids, or like just because you want to splurge, but just because, but you're also hurting yourself in the long haul because you'll never meet those goals. Other times I also will take the other route because visually that sounds great, but realistically we're still waking up and bank account's not that. And I take it back to how are your emotions, like, so how do you feel when you're checking your bank account? Do we avoid checking on our money? There are certain things that I will bring to that our body language is already telling them that what's going on, and that's where I will kind of counteract with what they're telling me just as much. So if it's a mental speed bump that we got to get through, that's really what we are conquering first. And then we'll get to the habit that needs to change to make that a realistic outcome.
Mm. Something that Dan taught me when I met him was that you pay yourself first. I've always heard
Mhm.
pay yourself first. No one told me that paying yourself first was an IRA and a SEP. I always thought paying yourself first was a savings account or, your checking account. And even in corporate, when he enters, is like, what's the max I can put in a 401k because I want to
Mhm.
pay myself first. And I think that future to me, the tax bracket is like, we're not, banks might be thinking about you 40 years from now, where Dan might be thinking about like, well, 5 years from now, how much, what stocks have I bought?
Mhm.
Where did they grow? Did I pay my future self in an area that grows? How do you pay your future self while also stockpiling money and like doing all the other things? Like that was the hard part for me to wrap my head around.
Yeah. I think that's the one of the best parts is I had to live it first to know.
Mm,
And a lot of my advice goes through my own experience. So the element of like that moment before, I was contributing like $5 at first, and I was focusing on EFTs. Like there are certain things that I was wanting to know that if I'm putting money here, how am I getting it back in return? That was a big thing for me. So when it came to the stock route or where I was putting it, it started out with the high yield savings, just because I've had a savings probably since I could read and do things, but I didn't know that that savings was just very much safe haven in a sense for the money that's sitting there. But it's not necessarily doing anything to grow. And that's where, when I got to my 20s, high yield savings account, Ali, but also I know American Express, if you have the card, they have that as an option too. Cash App even has now a high yield savings. But there's so many routes to go about just putting your money in one space that's still going to grow. But it's starting out by things that aren't going to make you transfer things back. So if you know that that cushion that you have, maybe $50 this week, take that cushion, do half of that first, because our natural instincts are going to say, oh, I could have had that full $50 to do this and that, or I could have done this with that money. Now it's just sitting there. So taking a small bite of that by saying $25, okay, that didn't hurt. I still have 25 to kind of play with, splurge with, go to dollar store, whatever the case. But that moment where you put that full 50 back and you feel accomplished, that's a mindset shift. That is literally that moment where you're not thinking about where else that money could have went. You're not hurting yourself in the long haul, but taking bite size to get to that point of saying I could put 100 aside and not think about it twice.
yeah, you're making little chips that make a pile, and that's the part
Hmm.
that's so hard is it just feels like little bits of potato chips, right? And but
Yeah.
what you're really talking about is when we're a year from now or 2 years from now, you're gonna have a whole bag. And I heard you earlier say, 2018, you had this vision, but you didn't execute for a year because it took some time. I think
Yeah.
the time is so scary, like for some people. If you're gonna 5 years from now, you're gonna be sitting where you're sitting. Will you be sitting there also with having worked towards your dream? And that
Hmm.
can be very scary, particularly when you're also just struggling to make it through your day to day in corporate. Any mindset shift that you see that people need to have while they're in corporate, even to stockpile money and be able to leave?
Yes. we have seen it time and time again, these layoff seasons.
Mhm.
Be prepared even if you are feeling secure right now. Preparation makes a difference. Even if that 2, 3 thousand that you're saving just for that cushion of a month, that can easily turn into a down payment later if you don't get laid off. Like there's certain things in that moment where you're saving up that you don't even realize that it could be coming in nest egg for something totally different once you get to that point. And also, corporate is a temporary place. I feel like one thing for sure, if the big people want to close the doors, they will. Um, and they're not thinking about you or anything else at that point, and that's okay. And that's the point I think allowed me to be not. I'm going to say for now because next year I know I'm going to have a plan executed that I'm going to be proud of.
Mm. Yeah, so there really also is a mindset of being in the present moment while also working towards the future moment. And
Yeah,
that's a hard space to hold. Right? It's like I'm still this person, but I'm becoming this
yeah,
person. I always like to tell people like you're becoming who you were as a kid. Like we want more of that. I love that you bring so much joy into what you do. Finances are scary. It is people have financial traumas. I can tell you I'm one
mhm.
of those people that's guilty of not wanting to look at my bank account. And it doesn't even matter that it looks nothing like it ever used to. It doesn't even matter that there's always plenty of money in it. I still carry that. Do you have yoga for finances? Because
We're working on that
I knew
actually.
you would be. And I want to, before we wrap up the episode, I also want to touch on because you do all these other things. Talk a little bit about the kids and the education. I know you're starting to work into sports, and we'll do future episodes on that too, for sure. But talk a
Yes.
little bit about that.
Yeah. So when it comes to youth, I feel like I've always been hands on with them. I used to be a babysitter from high school to the point I used to nanny after college. So I've always felt like they are the next generation for a reason. And if we aren't tending to them, who will we? And I feel like that's the best part of being an auntie. I feel like it is my purpose to let them know that they have somebody on the journey. Even though my littles are still little right now, I think I'm cherishing that even more. Um, but I have been working on making sure that when they get to the point of high school and college, that they have somebody to talk to or they have a resource. So my first book was truly that it was created with intention of my AAU basketball girls. So they were graduating and going to college to play basketball. But I feel like when we were in practice, I wasn't talking about money. Like they knew I may do something in that element, but they didn't get to learn about what I can do for them. So I created the book with intention of my basketball girls truly knowing that they are now sophomores and juniors in college and they're preparing for life on the other side of adulthood after college. And so why not have something that's truly meant for them with them in mind? But that's more the basics, just giving you like what is compound interest, certain things like that.
Hmm.
Um, but the next book is very much where my heart lies because I grew up with an all American dad and my siblings all athletes, including myself. And so when it came to college sports, I realized that was a job title I was not ready for, mainly because I got to witness everybody else do it. But I have so much advice I would share just by the association of everybody I've been around, from my sister to friends and association of others in sports, that we are in a whole new level of sports and student athletes. And we need to make sure that they are understanding that they are representing themselves, a future brand, and all the things in between. I think that's the part where letting them be just kids is one thing, but also preparing them for what they could do with their talent. So
Mm.
that is the goal for the next book, is to educate them and give them a more of a business oriented mindset of going into it, because there's going to be contracts, there's going to be things that they've never even heard of vocabulary wise that I'd rather have them now. So there's vocab lists, literally like we are going back in the day, giving them all the information that I wish I had, because I think that was what made it scary for me of even considering basketball in college world, was knowing all the things I was signing up for. I'm like, intramural sounds real nice. I can do my classes. I can pick the schedule I want, and all the things. And so from the outside point of view, I'm grateful of that. But I feel like there's so much education that needs to be poured into them.
Yeah, you talked about identity before in corporate and not identifying as that. As like I was an NCAA athlete, but I never really identified as an athlete. And this, like, I mean, it was very much I loved being an athlete because we made fun of all the people that weren't athletes. It was a small school. I was a D2 school, um, but it wasn't. I graduated and it was like, yep, I coached tennis. So I did do a little, like I had a little bit of a transition, but
Mhm.
so many people are wrapped up in like, well, I need a new identity. And like your identity is a soul. Your identity is joy. I love that
Yeah,
about you. And everything else are areas that you might borrow and you might tell people because you have to market yourself. But I think some of the work that you're really doing of helping people like not identify with their finances, right? Like, oh, this is my $50. That's almost like identifying with the experiences that you could have with this money versus letting it go because you
mhm.
identify as a badass business owner. You identify with somebody who has plenty of money. They can retire at 45. Now, the reason I like money markets is they don't force you. You could take it out when you choose and you don't have to retire on their schedule. And I think really
Yeah,
what both of us, corporations are thinking about quarter over quarter, and entrepreneurs are thinking about the next generation.
yeah,
Truly entrepreneurs, right? Like, what does it matter what money you put away if you've destroyed the world for the next generation? Maybe we need to have a
yeah.
follow up where we talk about how the boomers had everything handed to them and they were like, yeah, piss off. They were like, I'm going to die with no money and I'm not going to give you any. Like, what?
Yeah, that was
And
literally
we
how I
were
was raised. Yes.
and that's society, right? That's where I think you're bringing the joy of finding money is about moving it around. I always look at the Jewish community where they take care of like the tribe because they're such
Yeah.
a tribal and in America it was bootstrap as an individual. If your parents are rich, too bad you're not getting any of it. How many
Mhm.
billionaires have said like, oh, I'm giving my kids nothing? And also I've destroyed the planet to do so. So good luck finding something. The
The scary
entrepreneur,
world.
yeah, the entrepreneur mindset is more of looking at, well, not only am I investing in this for the future, but it's your mom, and so she could be raise her kids. It's like they had
Mhm.
a right of vision. Entrepreneurship has to have a vision beyond just I want to make money not working for the man.
Right. Yeah. And I think that was the other part of this being third generation. I've got that side of it too. I grew up learning about the politics side of things. Because there's politics in for athletes too. And that's the
Mhm.
part where I have that in the book as well. But it's something that I always had around me education wise that I feel like I was able to maneuver differently because of that.
Yeah, you already knew that corporations didn't care about you. That it's other people that don't realize that.
Right.
I,
I still
it's
wanted
a
my voice heard.
Hana. It means family here. Like to understand from a corporate perspective that the CEO has a fiduciary duty to make those people money, and the easiest way to make people money, lay off people.
Facts.
It's the easy,
It
as a
rinse,
bookkeeper,
repeat, and
like
it
the
does it
biggest
again.
expense. Oh, payroll's pretty high. Don't worry about that data center over there. We need that. Let's get rid of the people. As we wrap up here today, I have my 3 questions for those still tuned in. What is your superpower?
My superpower is seeing the vision in people's goals.
Mm, yeah, you do have that. We need to talk about that in a bonus episode. You bring the vision. uh, that's true. What's your purpose?
Um, Bringing financial literacy as a normalcy. I feel like I'm walking in that, but also not just the financial piece, but knowing that I'm building the legacy I would want to have.
My favorite question. What's next for you?
Quality question. Um, what is next? Honestly, I feel like that's a mixture of when is this book getting done? Um, and who's ready to sponsor the next retreat I have in mind. But I think creating that intimate space where people can be vulnerable and also truly themselves. I don't know what that capacity looks like, but I think that is what I want to create, that space where they have, where either if it's yoga or stretching their mind, I feel like I want to be a part of that.
And I always leave the last word to my guests. What would you like to share with people that are listening?
My last few words would be, that's a good question. Financial things are not scary, and it's only scary based off of what your current trauma is based on it. And we also have a way out of it.